Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Above the Bar podcast, where each week we belly up to the bar with a new guest, find out what they do, who they are, and what makes them great. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. Alrighty, folks, welcome back to the Above the Bar podcast. None of you are live with us yet, but that's because it's a Saturday and we don't ever do shit on Saturday. I'm normally working, and especially on a Saturday like today, I'm not going to say who I'm rooting for because I'm not going to jinx my team, but I am wearing my Albany Firewolf, so hopefully they work out tonight, these guys here. But bellying up to the bar with us today, and if anybody's watching the live and you can tell me if you can hear the audio good, let me know. But bellying up to the bar with us today, a repeat customer, which is fitting for where we're sitting at right now. We're in the den of iniquity that is the movement of the Helderberg Mountains into the plethora that is, I'm just using any big word that I can think of right now.
I was about to say, put this motherfucker on the payroll.
You know, all these different things. But joining us live, and look at him, like at least he still keeps a halfway decent haircut. And we'll talk slow to him. We know we always are kind to the O's. They need a little extra attention and everything. But joining us, and I don't have my regular soundboard, folks, so you got to bear with me. So it's Mr. Jesse Sommers. I told you I don't have my regular soundboard, so I'm like hitting soundboard buttons, and I don't have my regular soundboard. So.
Yeah, well, I appreciate the sad trumpets to herald my arrival.
Herald your
to the podcast. Third time's a charm.
It is the third time, and we've done some pretty fun stuff. But today, what we're going to do something a little bit different that I think everybody will appreciate. So Jesse's been doing now, and if you've never gone back and looked at it, Jesse was one of our early guests. We talked to him back in the day. He was still captain.
Yeah, still
Captain Sommers. And we're not even talking about like the superhero. He was Captain Sommers, and he was still in his what we would call camis in the Marine Corps, BDUs for the Army. And we had our first meeting, and we talked. You hadn't even bottled a bottle yet.
No, it was all conceptual. We had some labels and lofty dreams.
That's it. And
it's wild because, in fact, the second time that I talked to you, that was over like Zoom or whatnot. The second time I talked to you live, we had just bottled, but we weren't even on like shelves. We weren't on menus yet.
See, that's wild to me. And what's crazier about it all is that first bottles that I had, I almost never drank because I was like, this says batch 1.
Right.
And I was like, oh, I should save these.
But
I drank it. Fuck that. I drank the shit. Like
a lot of the sentimental purchases when we were like, that was the value proposition. We're like, yo, this is a batch 1. You're definitely going to want this as a collector's item. I think the vast majority of people who bought those with the ambition of keeping it in case it, became valuable sometime down the line. Nah, that shit got drank immediately.
Yeah. Like I'm not playing this game. I want and you know what, folks, and if you happen to be in the capital region, you want to go see what we've got going on, you can join Jesse and I live. I'm just trying to mess with some post stuff. It is, what is that?
You can post this and people can tune into it live.
Yep, this is live right now. So like our bartender Keith hasn't even realized like, hey, maybe I should ask this guy like, how can I share this with all my friends? Because he's not even paying attention. But that's bartenders for you folks. Like they're in their own little space. They think they're that guy. They're special. So we work with them,
I'd say right now the best part of the podcast is my man Keith behind the bar.
Right, let's see if we can we'll turn it so everybody can see Keith for a moment, and then just look at his space as I'm turning it, folks. For those of you that are out there watching, I'm going to share this with a bunch. Wave hi, Keith. Hi, everyone. I swear to you, I'm not coming for your daughters.
Keith is like a multifaceted bartender. He's also a little bit of an enforcer.
Oh,
yeah. Plays the security game. I don't want to say that this was the primary driver of why we hired him, but it was when I witnessed firsthand his capacity to hold his own in a fight in the parking lot outside my house.
Apartment?
That was when I was like, I probably should make friends with that guy.
Where you're like, man, that guy's amazing. He could punch people in the face.
Well, the crazy thing is, it's like his legends precede him. It's at this point, I don't even know what's true and what's not. What I do know is enough people think it's true that they generally don't screw with them. And that's why it seemed like, on Lark Street, in light of certain problems that's had over the, past couple years, it was a good thing to put some guy who looked like he had just been released from incarceration behind the bar.
Well, you know what? And that's part of what we're going to be talking about today. I'm glad you brought up. So besides, we're going to talk about what's going on with New Scotland Spirits, what they're up to right now is we're also going to talk, and I love getting an entrepreneurial angle about being in a community. How, as a small business owner, are you also a community leader? And I think a lot of people miss that factor, that you have to be beyond just what you're doing every day. You have to be willing to get involved. And you've done that with, I don't know if we want to call it persona, moniker, labeling.
What you're talking about is the self-appointed title that I've supposed inherited out of thin air. I am the sheriff of Lark Street. And the thing is that there's a tactical reason. Like, if you consider how to create an easily digestible concept for people, even though it's going to infuriate some and enamor others, by establishing the idea of there being a sheriff of Lark Street, what we're basically saying is, look, encapsulating it all at one time, we got some issues on Lark Street, and
a little bit.
This is, there's a movement to powerfully and immediately confront those issues. So that this becomes the Lark Street that Keith and I remember from back in the day. I mean, if you were bopping around here in the mid 90s to early 2000s, dude, Lark Street,
it was a spot.
It was the spot. It was the spot. And the thing is, I've often thought, like, is this one of those, okay, it's easy for me to think back 20, 25 years and glorify. Yeah. You can never tell if I'm just like kind of remembering the parts that I want to remember. But I got to tell you, bro, it is different. Like, you used to be able to stay out till 4 a.m., shut down Soho's Pizza when they just arrived on the spot. And there would be people everywhere. It was vibrant. It was light. Like, I remember we could bar hop all the way down the corridor. And dude, it was like the way I here's a standard. Women in high heels didn't feel afraid to walk down 2 blocks at 2 a.m. And at this point, there is, rightfully or not, there is this perception that is,
it's changed.
It's changed. And so I think partially the objective is to say this can be a community for everyone again. Families, patrons of places like our tasting room. We don't need to cede the street to kind of the social vices that have, in many respects, depressed turnout from outside the city, but even in the neighborhood itself.
Well, you're already getting questioned, bro. I just want you to know that.
Oh,
so we're going to get into that, Nate. Nate's already hit it up, but I love the fact that you've established this beautiful tasting room, and it's unique. It's got a and I'm going to make Keith start with what I feel like this room needs for drink wise, because we actually have a bourbon book. We already ruined his day. Like, I don't know whose bourbon book this is. It's the big book of bourbon cocktails. So I'm already jacking with Keith's day, where I was like, hey, I'm just going to flip through a page and pick something. But before we get into that, so that we can start off this with a good cocktail, I think the perfect cocktail for this room is an old fashioned.
Oh, and in fact, can I talk a little bit about the old fashioned that Keith is going to be making?
Is it like a different kind of?
You better fucking believe it. So here's the thing about an old fashioned. People kind of lose sight of this. David Cross, the comedian, has an amazing routine where he says that among the things that piss him off the most is the fact that the word literally is now used in its figurative context.
What do you mean?
They'll say, like, he uses the metaphor of a sportscast where he's got, the sportscasters who was saying, oh my God, he literally ripped his head off.
Oh,
it's like,
literally.
No, he didn't literally rip it off. He figuratively ripped it off. And he says, when you misuse the word literally, you're misusing it. Exactly. Well, the whole thing about an old fashioned, the thing that made it an old fashioned is that it used rye. Rye whiskey. But now if you get an old fashioned, the standard is bourbon, which is completely undermining the entire reason that it is an old fashioned. Well, here's what we did here as an homage to my business partner, Rosa Maria Lupino, who is kind of the matron.
You don't say her name right.
Rosa Maria.
Rosa Maria.
Rosa Maria
Listen here.
Lupino.
You need to listen to me. It's Rosa Maria. You need to come in here. You need to say my name with the style and the proficiency that it deserves.
That's really impressive. That is, in fact, she's the other security force here, and she's the matron face of the tasting room. So our old fashioned is known as the Queen's Old Fashioned, and the reason that it's the Queen's Old Fashioned is we use our aged 7-year winter wheat whiskey. And Keith, also, when you're done concocting old fashions, if you'd also set up a flight contrived from the board itself, is made from our staves from the barrels in which we aged our whiskey. I'd love to walk him through just a regular flight of the wheat, the rye, the bourbon, and the vodka. Have you tried our vodka yet?
I've never had the vodka.
Player.
But you know what? What's funny about the vodka, and I quote you often on this, and we talked about this, and I'll probably get it wrong because I quote people wrong all the time. What's the saying? Bourbon is for the love, vodka is for the money.
Word.
And if you don't know what that means, and for those of you that are watching us live again, we're here at the New Scotland Tasting Room, live in Albany on Lark Street. You can pop by here. What's the address again?
209 Lark Street. It's the corner of State and Lark. I mean, the most iconic corner on the corridor.
And if you got any questions as you're watching this live, you want to know about why Jesse decided to get into a product that physically takes years for the first bottle to even be used, and worse than that is you don't know if it'll be good.
Hell no.
Like you could be 5 years into it and not know if it's good.
What you can do though, I mean, Sean, here are the inputs that you can do to give it at least.
It's gonna. I jacked him all up. Keep going.
The way you can do to influence the probability of quality is by using the best inputs. So you get, good grain. You use great water. I mean, I'll tell you the secret of our spirits and the water we use. And you use great, most importantly, charred oak barrels. So all our charred oak barrels are coming from the Adirondack barrel cooperage.
All right.
Amazing coopers. And the product, I mean, a lot of the taste of whiskey is influenced by the wood in which it's aging. So that's one thing. The other thing is, here's going to knock your socks off. The water we use, Schenectady Municipal. So the crazy thing is, it's some of the best water in New York State.
You get hepatitis drinking.
That's what see, here's the thing. If you tapped into the Schenectady groundwater, you better believe it.
You're catching something.
Schenectady Municipal.
Hold on, I got to show something. So how he has any of these left, and how somebody has not stolen every one of them. His leather coasters. There is nobody I know of more self-centered, more about him.
Oh,
Jesse,
wait a second.
I love it.
Big boy. Wait, can you hand me a menu? I got to show him. I have to show him the menu.
It's a leather. I love it.
Now, here's the thing. I asked this only because you are, I asked this only because you are a Marine. Yeah. Are you literate?
Able to read?
Yeah.
Not always, but we'll try.
If you ever are have the time, and these pages might take 6 or 7 minutes to get through, but check this out, bro. I mean, look here. My favorite is the LaJoy, and if you'd permit me to read the description of that cocktail in our leather-bound branded menu.
Look at this again, folks. This is this is so Jesse. Every bit of this is the guy that I know that it was and. For his Sheriff of Lark Street persona that nobody here, if you go, and he has an Instagram that's Sheriff of Lark Street, you can go check it out. I remember when he started the whole Sheriff of Lark Street thing, watching him. It was a 2-part Instagram series, 2 girls rolling around fighting on the ground in front of him, and then the next day interviewing the 2 girls because they were best friends.
They were best friends. We found them. We created a peace summit, and then there was a 3rd installment, which was
I didn't see that.
Pix 106. Quinn Cantera had me on the show to talk about it. So it was funny the way media was feeding on media.
That's great.
But since you mentioned the Sheriff of Lark Street, I'm just going to read, because in fact there is a drink known as the Sheriff of Lark Street.
What Nate's already saying, burnt wood and good water is key.
Yep.
And a lot depends on how much I've had to drink. Depending on how this interview goes, my wife having to come out here and pick me up, or Jesse driving my truck back to the house, and we'll Uber him back.
So I'm gonna read just a couple of these drinks.
There's something about that old fashioned.
Let me tell you what it is.
Tell us about it.
In 1790, Albany's Common Council voted to eradicate all traces of England's former colonial control. Queen Street was thus renamed Elk Street, thereby eliminating any allusion to royalty until our very own Queen Rosa Maria stepped onto the scene. Now, by Her Majesty's decree, this take on that most classic of cocktails forsakes both bourbon and rye in favor of our Helderberg winter wheat whiskey. Yet the bitters, cherries, and sultry orange peel will still pique your sense of nostalgia. Now,
as I hear you say central orange peels, all I can hear is the music from Police Academy when they would go into the Blue Oyster and they just are.
I mean, that's my theme song.
Everybody needs a good theme song.
Nick, do you want to hear about the Sheriff of Lark Street, the cocktail named after yours truly?
I would love. Hold on, before you even name it. So here's my question.
Yeah.
Did you go to Keith and say, Keith, make me a cocktail so that it can be named after me? Or did somebody else say, hey, I made a cocktail and I think this should be named?
It's way more narcissistic than that.
I love every bit of it now.
I made the titles and the description, and then I handed it off to Rosa Maria and said, hey, can you do this? Can you make this into a drink? And she looked at me annoyed and was like, that's not how you make drinks. You don't come up with a name and the description first. And I said, well, here at the New Scotland Spirits Tasting Room, that's precisely what we do. We're renegades.
That's a beautiful thing. But we were talking about this beforehand. I think this is one you should try. So I don't know if you know this about ChatGPT. We were talking about ChatGPT before. And
it's scary.
It's kind of moving culture different ways. When we did Christmas dinner, I smoked a prime rib.
Okay.
I just put in the ChatGPT, here's my ingredients, and I have a smoker. How should I make this? And it gave me everything. Have you tried that with any
I haven't, but let me tell you something. The problem is that ChatGPT is soon to obviate the only thing I bring to this business, which is creativity.
What is it ovulating?
The word is obviate. Like, in fact, I don't even know how to break this down for you, Sean. Like render moot. Is that better?
That's better. That's way
okay. You got those render and moot.
Like, because here's can we tell people what your day job is, or we're going to keep that to ourselves?
I was an attorney, and I mean,
sounds like an attorney still.
Technically, I still 4 or 5 days a month. I'm a public defender in Montgomery County, but bro, those are the last remnants of needing to be able to pay the mortgage. As soon as this company permits me to never step into a courtroom again, player, I will hang up those spurs. I hate attorneys. I hate being an attorney. I hate the entire construct of the process by which attorneys are paid.
Doesn't it feel good though that you can, when they try to speak bullshit, you can speak it, especially when you're establishing a business. I know myself as I established my business, that was a big challenge for me. When even from the legalese, or I don't know, I doubt you guys fall under this, but I know I do. But you might, like when somebody's like, "Are you a Schedule C?" Like all those different terminology.
Yeah, but here's a great. I'll demystify it right now. You know John Curtin, right?
Okay, yeah.
John Curtin, the owner of the Albany Distilling Company.
Great guy. We've interviewed him. Go find that one.
I'll admit, best person since Jesus Christ, and I will also say that as a Jew. I'll grant the guy some credibility. Since him, we haven't had it until John Curtin. This dude is
Jewish people in the Helderbergs.
This guy.
Yeah.
So here's the wild thing. John's not an attorney, but he reads the law. He understands it.
Smart. John is stupid smart.
And so the thing is, it's like, you want to know what me as an attorney, I just had this call with him fucking yesterday. If I need to understand the law, I contact not an attorney. I contact John. And the thing that you realize is there is this mythology and mystique about the law degree and passing the bar, bro. I invite attorneys to try to tell me otherwise. It is as an occupational specialty, a fucking fraud. If you were prepared to read and you're prepared to do the work of digesting really deliberately opaque language, you don't need an attorney. And you're going to see that shit when ChatGPT really comes of age. I showed Keith. I wrote a common council resolution just by saying, hey, write me a common council resolution for X, Y, and Z. It wrote it for me. This is the first discipline that is going to end up being nullified by artificial intelligence is the one that doesn't require a lot of intelligence to say, which is to say, lawyers.
We had a gentleman on the show a few months back. He physically wrote the book on AI, and he would talk about, and I don't know if you know that there's a difference. So we're in the infant stages of AI. They talk about this year, the next iteration of AI, we will probably see it this year, is what's called AG.
I heard that.
Which is artificial general intelligence.
Yep.
But the scary one, that the Stephen Hawking's, the machines taking over the world and this, that, and the other, is ASI, artificial superior intelligence, where you run the risk of, are they talking to themselves? Do they have their own intelligence? I know we were talking before the show about use AI and writing things and doing all this stuff, but it truly, I was doing staffing. We were hiring predictive engineers. Have you ever heard of it?
People who know how to program the questions, the prompts, right?
The prompts and everything. And it's really a next thing. But I'm curious, for you as a small business owner, I know I use it all the time, whether it's on the podcast or whether it's in the window treatment business. I use it often. For you as a small business owner, how is it helping you?
Great question.
To grow this?
It's not because I don't know how to use it yet, and I that's a problem. I realize it. And listen, I hate to say this because you can't get these fucking Gen Zers to show up to work on time, but they are.
Damn it, Keith.
But trust me, my man's a millennial, and I don't fuck with Gen Z when it comes to getting them here on time. But what you can't live without them, because these people, they speak the language of the ChatGPT prompt,
right?
And they are my bridge to a level of intellect that I can't access myself. I've seen it. I can see how it would be helpful. I just don't know quite how to leverage it yet. But, I'll put it this way, dude. I'm snipped. I'm not having kids. That is a deliberate choice. And one of the factors informing that is that I am genuinely afraid.
The world is a better place.
Trust me. I like the idea that you can trace my existential lineage all the way back to the very first cells becoming life. And I'm cutting that shit out right now in the 2000s. Done with it. And partially it's because this world, when they're talking drones over Jersey, and now you got government hearings on whether or not there exists the Division for the Retrieval of Non-Human Origin Aircraft, I'm like, when did I step into this fucking universe where there are aliens and Terminators? It's all just a matter of time before we encounter an intelligence. It's like, we don't need this humanity shit. That's how I look at it, which is why, for what it's worth, as an interesting segue, we have lots of different arrays of whiskey and vodka with which you can drown your fears. And that's what I do. And let me also show you, because we're not done with the branding on the products yet. Check that out. New Scotland, baby.
And I'll tell you, if you get a chance and you can go on Jesse's Sheriff of Lark Street Instagram profile, and you'll see the big interview with the public. What did they call it?
The press conference?
Yeah, but what did they call
the People's Podium?
The People's Podium, which was absolutely hilarious. The best part of it was the guy from the local news that was interviewing Jesse, and he's like, well, isn't this just a publicity stunt? Jesse goes, yes, that's my logo right there. What do you think? That was the best part of the whole thing for me, because I'm like, I love this guy, because I would have done the same exact thing. Well, no shit, Sherlock, it's out front of my place. And I'm telling you, but come on down. We're here now. For those of you that are watching live, and Nate, I'm going to get to your question in a minute here, because I'm going to change it up. We're going to ask about that one, but we're also going to ask, what do you think goes well with this?
Yeah.
So look at, I love.
So that's 100% wheat whiskey, single grain. Just smell it. That's aged 7 years, player.
You can get away. I'll tell you like this, for anybody who doesn't like whiskeys, good whiskey is, and I don't have a better way of putting it, is the same idea on the nose of smelling good weed.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. It is. It's a pleasant smell, and it's so incredibly unique.
It really, and you have to like the smell. and you have to get used to it. Like the first time that if somebody just handed you a little jar and was like, "Smell my weed," you'd be like,
"Oh, right, it's pungent as shit."
It's pungent, diesely in your nose.
But when you're able to discern anything, you start picking. I hate saying this because it sounds so played out and lame. You really can smell the notes. What you're smelling, what you're tasting, that sweetness, that's the chemical compound vanillin, which you get from charring, burning the inside of a white oak barrel, caramelizing all those starches into sugar. That's why when people are like, "Oh, it smells like butterscotch, it smells like toffee, caramel," it's like, well, yeah, player, you're smelling the same chemical compound that you get in all of those different, sweets. Now, here's the crazy thing. What you just tasted is 100% wheat. Most of that flavor is coming from the barrel. This is a rye.
See, this is my favorite, and anybody who watches the show knows my standard for rye is Jesse's standard. We actually have the same standard, which is Whistle Pig. There is nothing that they are.
They're best.
They truly are. It's a Vermont product, and I always say either you're better than or you're less than.
Yeah.
And that's really it when it comes to Whistle Pig. Like it's the kind of thing that when somebody says to me, "Well, I don't like rye." Well, let me give you a drink of Whistle Pig.
So here's the interesting. Whistle Pig has since been, it's no longer the Whistle Pig that you and I know from back in the day. It's been sold, yada yada yada. But
I didn't know that.
It has. But there's a place that has legit true Whistle Pig, and it's called Top of the Park in Lake Placid. This dude is you think we like Whistle Pig? This guy's a fucking nut job, and
they got some crazy expensive Whistle Pigs.
Oh my god, he's got them all. It's the biggest collection globally of rare Whistle Pigs. And I if you're willing to spend the cake, go to Lake Placid, post up at Top of the Bar. I mean, I wish that we could be a rye company that rivals that. I just accept that we're in a different lane. What you're tasting there is what's known as an Empire Rye.
Well, explain that, because
sure,
between you and John, we were talking about John from Albany Distilling. That's why that exists.
Well, yeah, I mean, John's also he's kind of a pioneer of not just the Empire Rye movement. John's a pioneer of distilling in the state of New York. And it's funny that he's up in Albany. Albany Distilling Company was the first distillery in Albany since Prohibition. But, this dude, he's a Johnny Appleseed. In fact, to a fault, this motherfucker is one of the reasons there are so many competitors, because he will weirdly just dispense knowledge for free about how to, build a successful company. I mean, we've benefited from him. And he was one of the people early on that was part of this Empire Rye movement. What the Empire Rye movement is, it's basically, I look at it as a response to the self-righteous Kentuckians who insist that irrespective of the law, Code of Federal Regulations, that defines a bourbon merely as any spirit, a whiskey, that's 51% or more corn in the grain bill and is aged in a new charred oak barrel in America, that's a bourbon.
Well, it's the most regulated food product in the United States?
I did know that.
That bourbon is the most regulated food product. That's the crazy thing.
Since 1897, the Bottled and Bond Act. I mean, that's what's crazy. And the fact that it's America's native spirit, that's law by act of Congress in, I think, 1964. Might be 54, but one of those. And the point is Kentucky will insist it's not a real bourbon unless it's distilled in Kentucky. Well, New York, ever occupying or ever possessed of a chip on the shoulder,
yes,
said, well, fuck you guys. What we got is the real rye. We have what's called an Empire Rye. This is a rye that can only be made in New York because it's a minimum 75% rye in the grain bill, not 51, which is the standard. All got to be 100% New York grain. It's got to be aged a minimum of, I believe, 3 years. In other words, to establish some level of quality. And tellingly, it's got to be barreled at 115 proof, not 125 proof. The reason is, and I'll explain proofing in a second, when you have a bit more water content in your barrel, you make it the whole liquid, you make it more soluble with the fibers of the barrel. Okay. So here we are in the Northeast with the fluctuating, I mean, you can see the blizzard outside right now, the fluctuating seasonal temperature, really hot in the summer, really cold in the winter. That barrel is expanding, it's contracting, and in so doing, it's having this interaction, this interplay with the spirit. Having a little bit more water means that you're getting a little bit more of the sweetness of the barrel, which is why that Empire Rye that you tasted is going to have a bit more of a back end sweetness And that's a New York rye. That's an Empire rye. That's a signature unique to this state. And when we talk about proofing, what I really want people to take away from that is all it means is just how watered down it is it. You take your spirit off the still, you water it down from that concentrated, alcohol into 125, usually 125 proof. You put it in a barrel. When you take it out of the barrel, you can either put it right into a bottle, that's barrel proof, or you proof it down even lower so it's not going to be so hot with a higher alcohol content. All proofing means is that you're adding water to it. So when you get your standard 80 proof, your 40% alcohol bottle, the other 60% is water. And when you have those slight variations of taste between a bourbon and a rye and a wheat whiskey, for example, what you're tasting is the lingering flavor molecules of the grain, right? So even though, let's just make up something unscientific, 85% of the taste of your whiskey is the barrel, those slight variations, that's the contribution of the underlying grain from which you're distilling.
I want to talk about the barrel thing for a second. Keith, may I please and thank you, as long as Jesse doesn't get mad at me, have just a small amount of 68 whiskey.
Yeah. Ooh, yeah, there we go.
Because I really I want to talk about this. Like, now, first off, folks, as Keith is grabbing this 68 whiskey, we'll explain what the name is from, why Jesse named it this way, and I'm also going to tell you have to be an adult to drink this. And I'm not talking like over 21. I'm talking just in general. Well, this will take the hair off your chest and put it back on.
Yep.
All in the same breath. But what we're talking about here is this 68 whiskey is the nomenclature that the Army uses for a medic. This has kind of that feel to a what's the dog that used to carry the whiskey around its neck?
I know what you're talking about.
Saint Bernard. Yep. This is Saint Bernard liquor right here.
Now hold on before you drink it though.
Okay.
Because I want you to taste the difference. What he's got here right now, ladies and gentlemen, that is 100% corn. This is also 100% corn. This is our corn vodka. Watch what happens. I want you to drink the vodka first.
Well, let me explain this one.
Okay, by all means.
So I want to explain this in how we end up with whiskey and bourbons in the United States. So we all understand the reason that whiskeys and bourbons have the color is the barrel, literally is the barrel. So the history of this goes very simple. They made a lot of liquor in Kentucky, but the barrels would come across from the East Coast and they might have pickles in them. They might have fish in them. They might have other things in them. Well, you don't want to pour your liquor right into that. So they would clean the barrels out and then they would burn the inside of the barrel to get the flavor out of it. So it no longer tasted like fish or pickles or whatever it was. So then this clear liquor would make its way back to the East Coast. And when they would get it, they would say, well, that isn't whiskey. This is something, what did you bring to us? And what it was, they gave all those vanilla flavors and caramel flavors from the trip back across from Kentucky to the East Coast, and it changed the color of the liquor. So that's why you have it. This just means that it came out of the still, kissed the barrel, and got stuck right into a bottle.
That's right. And
Keith, did you know that?
I did not.
Keith was looking at me like I've served a million of these and I had no idea.
But before you taste it, this is what's so interesting.
You got to be a man to drink that. I'm just telling you.
This is the vodka, and this, like Tito's, is 6 times distilled, 100% corn. The difference with Tito's,
you can't even smell it.
Exactly, because we thrice chill filter it with Herkimer diamonds, which is to say the quartz from Herkimer County.
That's another one, and you can actually go if you happen to be in this region, you can go up to the Herkimer mines and
literally
and dig out Herkimer diamonds.
Get yourself some crystals. Those carbon compounds, they filter the impurities out of the vodka. Now, 6 times distilled, thrice chill filtered.
Dude, that's
100% corn.
There's no flavor in it.
It's the best. It's the best. Whereas whiskey is an art. What type of barrel? How long you age it? Grain. Vodka is just a science. How much money are you willing to put into your filtration?
There's no flavor there.
Watch this. Now, 100% corn.
An adult right now.
So you just went from 100% corn, no taste, 6 times distilled, thrice chill filtered. That's once distilled, no filtration, off the still, into the bottle. That is a corn whiskey.
April, come get me.
You can smell the corn like as if you're taking it from the. I can smell it from here. I can literally smell that shit from here.
It's unreal.
But the wild thing is, if you put that in a barrel,
in your car, it'll run it.
If you put that in a barrel, that becomes bourbon.
Well, that's all it is. Like it starts off its life here, and then it goes in that barrel and sits there for several years.
Yep.
And becomes this. But
There you go. It's moonshine, brother. Embrace your military roots. That's what we drank. That's what you were doing. That's what you're doing in the bathtub of the barracks.
Somehow I'm still able to drink that, and it's still smooth enough to drink.
Well, I'm gonna get credit where it's due, my man. That is distilled by a distiller named Steve Osborne at the Stoutridge Distillery in Marlborough. He's like nationally known for his corn whiskey.
But it's the smell of it. Like, this is one of those kind of things, like, you're not drinking this and then going home to your wife and being like, I wasn't drinking at all. I don't know what you're talking about, because I wouldn't even smoke a cigarette near that. Like, you might set your shit on fire.
The thing that's crazy is that when you don't have the mellowing influence of the barrel, the reality is that's actually only 82 proof, an homage to my birth year and the fact that I served in the 82nd. But did you just? I knew this. I knew he was going to roll his eyes. I knew you were going to make this shit.
No, it's in the 82nd. Do you know the cook? The 82nd has cooks in it, and they're like,
"That's right, that's right." And all of us can jump.
I'm in the 82nd. Bitch,
that's exactly right.
You rock a spatula.
That may be the case, but we also rock a spatula into the ground.
I'm a combat spatulas right now.
65 jumps, motherfucker. Listen to this guy. It's amazing that you could not go an hour without shit talking. I knew it was going to happen.
It can't happen. I'm not going to be able to do it.
I was like, I wonder if he's going to be able to maintain some sort of Keith, avoidance of the.
What Army stands? You know what Army stands for?
Here we go.
Aren't ready for Marines yet.
Okay, thank you so much. Most of us this guy, when you control the soundboard, you become way too powerful on a podcast.
The power of the soundboard.
It's unbelievable.
I love it though. And look, folks, and this is one of those things, like, Jesse and I can do this. I'd even pick on somebody like, I don't even know. Is Space Force real yet? Like, is it really?
Yo, it's for real.
I feel like, though, like, completely sidebar, we're going to make a left turn for a second. I feel like right now, as much as I love being a Marine.
Welcome. Don't mind us. Bars open and ready for business.
As much as I love being a Marine, I feel like
I'm Jesse. Forgive me. I'm in the midst of an interview with a former Marine who can't stop talking about it.
I got your email.
What's your name is?
Leah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So this, I knew Jesse was important.
Perfect.
In a minute here, we're going to just give everything to Keith.
We own property up that way.
Well, I look forward to speaking. Okay, I'll check the email, and then I should be done in like 20, 30 minutes.
Can't not talk to everyone. And I'm in his ear right now as this is going on, and he can hear me.
Turn it down.
I'm just picking on him so much. It's joyous.
You could still take it.
It's so great picking on officers.
Well, I'll tell you what. Let me.
Sure.
Okay, cool.
If you want homeowners to help, we're interested because we want the street thing together.
See that Sheriff of Lark Street stuff already.
Thank you, miss. I will give you a call.
See that? I told you, Jesse is the Sheriff of Lark Street. It is too
miss,
funny.
I will absolutely speak with you because you're speaking directly to what my heart's all about.
So, but
by the way, I just want to point out, look at this community little center.
That's it.
It's office hours.
Well, you know what? The original pubs in Ireland, that's where P's and Q's, your pints and quarts comes from. That's where that term, mind your P's and Q's. You ever heard the term mind your P's and Q's?
Yeah.
That comes from Irish pubs when the bartender was being told, mind your pints and your quarts as you were serving drinks. But if you go to, and that's why it was called a public house, because you could go there a lot of times. I believe, don't quote me on this, somebody will look it up. Irish bartenders in the early days were notaries. They could notarize things. They would witness documents.
Shut up.
They would witness documents because your lawyer might come and meet you there. They were family gathering spaces. People would meet there, so they could know.
Yeah, so they were actually real pillars of civic society.
Yeah, because they were. Yeah, they could do all those things. But back to my left turn real quick.
Yeah,
I feel like today, if I was 17, I wouldn't join the Marine Corps. I would try to join the Space Force because I want to be like a Space Marine.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you something. I mean, I thought it was silly, right?
Right.
And then
all this shit starts coming out.
They're talking about gravitic vehicles popping out of the ocean, and I'm like, probably a good thing we got a Space Force. Here's the crazy thing. You know what's? Listen, I think what has happened generally is there's such a level of distrust of the institutions that are supposed to be explaining what's going on that I literally I'm a pretty well educated person. A lot of years ostensibly studying out of books. I'll tell you right now, Sean, I don't know if we went to the moon. Like it's gotten to that level. It's gotten to that level with me where I'm like,
Krubek didn't do our moon landing. We went to the moon.
Listen, fine. You want to know something? I'll grant you that we might have. I'll grant you that we did.
Yes. What
I will also say is that I watched a video, which is accessible online, of our lunar lander taking off from, the surface of the moon. I was like, listen, I'm not saying that we haven't been to the moon. What I am saying is that shit's not real. And I think even if it is, the fact that I now at this point have access to so much information that is saying maybe it didn't happen, the breakdown of our shared reality is like complete. We literally have gotten to that state where I don't know what's real aside from what I can see and touch in a community. And that is in part why I think I've become a little bit more insular. It's like,
I get it.
It's like this is what I know to be real. Outside of Albany, I have no evidence independent of my own awareness that it exists. And that's why I'm like focusing so much here. And my military experience was great in that I got to see a lot of different communities, a lot of different people, et cetera, but nothing could have convinced me more that I needed to go home than seeing the rest of the world.
Oh, look, look, folks, if you want to hear great stories one day, find yourself a prior service member who spent any time in the early days of the war. I have one of my old captains, and I'll try to be as PC with this one. And I'm normally not a PC guy, but yeah, definitely had to talk to the village elders about their treatment and affection towards livestock.
Player, I could share,
and I'll just leave it at that.
It's an off the record conversation.
We'll talk about it. I mean, but that was like a real thing, and he didn't believe his troops when they first said it to him, and they were like, they were like, no, and he was like, sir, come out here and at the OP, get on the goggles, and you'll see it.
I think it's like here, the culture. Well, you know what? Actually, not even worth getting into.
No, we're not going to get it. We'll talk about
record,
it. But back to the liquor and sheriff of Lark Street and everything. And look, folks, if you're curious of what Jesse's got going on, you can look up New Scotland Spirits on Instagram. It's newscotlandspirits.com, right? Is it .com?
newscotlandspirits.com. Although at this point, websites are increasingly becoming passe. It's like you got to hit the social media in order to see shit.
I think websites are where I go to if I really want to know about you and what you've got going. I can click on your about. If I actually give a shit, I'm going to your website. If I want to see what you're doing today,
that's true.
I'll pop onto your IG. But if I actually care about what's going on,
it kind of depends. It depends on what your perspective of authenticity is. Is it the polished, static version of here's the summary of the operation? You go to a website,
right?
If you're looking more for what is the day-to-day character of this enterprise, that's what social media is great at doing. And, look, we maintain a website. It's where we have a list of all the retailers in which you can find our stuff. It's where you can learn about our spirits. It's just amazing to see how increasingly, people are not trying to read.
No,
it's wild.
I spend an hour a day, if not more, in my van, and I listen to audiobooks.
Well, that's the way to do it. Yeah.
No, but sure. And we're getting close to closing the bar here on our end. They're going to be open. You guys are open. What's the hours, Keith?
We'll be open tonight until at least 11.
So at least 11, you can come down onto Lark Street. It's a safe place for you on Lark Street. Keith will protect you and keep you safe. So come down to Lark Street, see what they got going on. But that kind of feeds into moving forward with this, or if you talk to somebody and they said to you, because you and I've talked about this, I was like, oh, let me show you, my stepmother's, we call it Nanny's hot apple pie, and let me show you my dad's homemade clue. And we've talked about this, and you're like, listen, bro, it sounds great to want to make these things, but this market is different. Like, you have so much you have to do. What are some of the things that you would tell somebody if they're looking to get into this space? Even if they're like, hey, look, I'm trying to stay super local and whatnot, what are some of the things that you would tell them, like, that you wish you'd have known when you jumped into this?
Yeah, it's a great question.
I know I asked.
It's hard to know a good answer to that because we're still trying to figure it out. I think partially one thing I would say is this is so much more difficult than I thought because of the oversaturation. If there's one piece of advice I would give, you cannot go it alone. If you've got an idea for whether it's a product or it's a label, find the existing partners and try to work through them. It's kind of like, I mean, for what it's worth, I wouldn't be here without the Albany Distilling Company. And I know that I've given this dude a lot of ball jiggling in the last, hour or so, but it's true. I mean, I went to someone who knew more than I did, and he hooked it up. He's bailed us out a few times. Like you can't do it alone because there's simply too many people who have already tried that route. And that's why you got a bunch of really shitty product on the shelves, and why we have to compete all the time, not just with other players, but with the conception that customers and liquor store owners may have about the
local spirit.
Yeah. Straight up. So I think it's like, hey, look, if you're trying to do something in this space, if you want to do distillation, the first thing I would do is go talk to some distillers and see if they can do something for you with their existing capacity, right? Before you try to source, barrels or whatnot, go talk to the closest cooper to you and find out who's using them. Build your supply chain, and otherwise, I mean, the money is going to be almost impossible to raise to get you over the fact or over what you don't know. The cheapest way to do it is to work with the people who are already forging ahead. And I think the other thing that I would say is you can't do anything if you're not going to be embraced by your community. And we've been exceptionally lucky in that, don't get me wrong, I've ruffled some feathers here.
No.
But
what's the one you just finally got back into? There was a liquor store that you just got back into.
Oh, my man, down at Country Wine and Spirits in Ravenna, the artist formerly known as Southgate. Yeah, sometimes, my approach is you gotta break some eggs if you're making that omelet. But in general, in the main, whether it's our native hometown in New Scotland, which just opened their arms to us from day one, or Center Square in Albany, who either they patron the bar or, they'll slide in the DMs and say, hey, I don't want to raise my head too high and say how much I support you, but I appreciate what you're doing. You have to be embraced by the people who you're supposed to be catering to. And by the way, to that extent, I do think before we close this up, I think it's not a bad idea to pull Keith into this seat very briefly.
We could do that. And
the reason I say that is, he's also a member of this community. And I think Lark Street gets a bad rap or whatnot, but how long you been here? How long you been kicking around Lark Street? I think it's a good point for someone not necessarily biased to talk about like what Lark Street is like, the benefits of being in Lark Street, because that's what we're trying to accentuate. That's what we're trying to promote. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, someone a little less privileged. Go
watch that video. I loved hearing the guy keep telling Jesse, well, look, as a privileged white guy on Lark Street, that's a privileged white guy. And all I could think to myself was like, wow,
this is not a
this guy is not a privileged guy.
So look at Keith, ruggedly handsome. Keep your wife and your daughters away from him. He looks like the guy that like shows up, probably has a tattoo that he really isn't proud of anymore from his youth. Look at this guy. So hi, Keith.
Hello. Hi, everybody.
I like that move, Keith. As you moved into the mic. So Keith, you are the bartender here at the tasting room on Lark Street for New Scotland Spirits, but you're also
and at the Lark Street Tavern as well.
And at the Lark Street Tavern, which has been around since I think Moses had a drink there at one point in time.
It's like 33.
Yeah, like it's been there forever. I want to start with this. As a bartender, where you can a place where it's very specific, where like Lark Street Tavern, beer, smells like stale beer and all those kind of things because it's just been around forever. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but that's as a kid whose parents owned a liquor store and a bar growing up, I know that smell. You didn't know that, did you? Yeah, my dad owned a liquor store and then bought a bar. And the bar also had a liquor store in it. So we had two liquor stores and a bar. And at one point in time, that's where I spent all my summers, like as a young kid between like ages 8 to 11, was in the bar carrying cases of beer. I was responsible for opening the soda machine and restocking it, playing the poker machines. I did all that shit. I actually, completely sidebar story. I ran the lottery machine for my dad when they first started in Maryland. I was probably like 9 years old, and I'll never forget where the liquor store was located. On one side was Project Housing, a place called Tidewater in Baltimore, and across the street from it was a assisted living facility, and it's in a super blue collar area that was like construction workers and all that. And one time, the first of the month landed on a Friday. So if you don't understand that, Dad also did check catching. $1 on every 100 is what we got paid. So everybody showed up, and I was running the lottery machine. I'll never forget this. His partner, he wasn't a business partner, but he worked there, was this gentleman called Big Bob. Bob was about 6'3", 6'4". My dad was about 6'2". And some guy from the back of the line yells, "Get that damn kid off the lottery machine. This line's too long." Before Bob could say anything, my dad pipes up and goes, "If you got a problem with it, you can get out. That's the best lottery guy in the entire state." Because I could sit there at 9 years old, and this is one of my whole things about how we educate kids. Stop treating them like they're babies. They can do amazing things. At 9 years old, I could run a lottery machine. And then Mr. Bob just leaned over to me and was like, "Don't worry about it, Sean. You're fine."
That's awesome.
But yeah, so that was me. So, but I'm curious for you as somebody going from where you can just pour whatever and people are looking for the bucket of beer to coming to a place that's a little more, Lark St Tavern, a little more refined, a little more, spit and polish here, where somebody's coming in very specific. How was that transition for you?
Well, to be honest with you, there wasn't much of a transition, because at Lark we do actually do a lot of cocktails.
Oh,
and
really?
Before I even got involved in bartending, I made sure that I learned how to make cocktails. I don't want to be embarrassed and somebody comes in and wants a Manhattan and you pull your phone out. So
Did you watch Tom Cruise?
No, I watched a bunch of YouTube videos on how to make cocktails.
I wasn't sure if you watched some Tom Cruise cocktails and
It's a good movie. But no, it's, people that come here are definitely looking to try the whiskey, I think, a lot more as it is in the bottle than maybe necessarily getting a Manhattan or an espresso martini or something like that.
Now, when somebody comes in and they're like, "Hey, what is this place about?" How do you describe this location to somebody?
Like when they come in and ask?
Yeah, like if somebody just is walking down the street and they're like, "Hey, I saw you guys. What's this place all about?"
Well, first thing I tell people is it's a great place to the tasting room is a great place if you want to go out on a date with somebody. It's nice, it's quiet, it's obviously it's very beautiful in here. But I would say again, go right back to the whiskey. I mean, I think people want to come here to try the whiskey, and they stay. I think they enjoy the ambiance of the place and they stay. And
it's a great atmosphere because it's one of those basement bars where you have the windows at street level, so you can see everybody coming by. You can see what's happening. What is your, if somebody comes in, they're like, "I don't know what to have. I'm not sure what my drink should be." Do you have a go-to cocktail where you're like, "Hey, this is the go-to cocktail"?
I'll usually ask people what kind of liquor they like to drink, and then from there I'll make them something. But so if somebody likes vodka, we can do a Cosmo for them. But again, I think the most common thing said to me when people come in here is that this feels like a speakeasy, like an old speakeasy.
Okay.
So with that in mind, a lot of Manhattans, old fashions, drinks like that, people seem to enjoy. We do like Sazeracs too.
What's a Sazerac?
A Sazerac is it has a little bit of absinthe in it, sugar, rye, stirred up, and that's pretty.
Have you considered ASMR videos, Keith? Have you ever considered those?
Considered what?
Doing ASMR videos?
I don't know what ASMR is.
So those are the videos where people go, "So I'm going to go ahead and crinkle this up right now.
It's
And they-
designed to put you to sleep,
and-
but erotic. So.
Oh,
but it's
am I-
like your voice right now. I don't know if I want to put my hand in my pocket or take a nap right now. Like you're like, so I go ahead and make my Sazerac and add a little absinthe in there, and go ahead and give me your phone number.
Well,
This is my first podcast ever.
Is it really? Look at
Yeah,
that!
so-
Yay!
Sorry if you guys can't hear me.
I got to show you this magazine. Let me take the reins back for a second. Thank you, Keith.
Thank you guys.
So
We appreciate you, Keith. Keith. I was going to actually, before he took over, I was going to be like, why don't you name a cocktail and let's see if Jesse can make it.
oh, come on. Let's put dude. This is why I only drink it neat. Like I have no idea how to make cocktails when I'm ordering. I don't know what I'm doing.
Where's the book? All right, we're going to do one book because we still have some time here. Where's the book at? All right, so we're going to do this as Jesse's telling me what's going on here. We have the big bourbon book. We're going to put Keith on the spot and see how New Scotland spirits. We're going to see if we have all the stuff to make it, though. All right, you're going to have to tell me when to stop, Jesse.
Stop.
All right, do you have? So it's pineapple smash. You can tell me if we have this. Do you have any pineapple?
Do we have? All
It says
right.
pineapple cube.
I did
but
not know that.
How about lemon wedge, mint sprigs? It says Basil Hayden, but we're gonna go with New Scotland.
Oh man, they
Simple-
pay to be in that book. Sons of bitches.
Simple syrup and bitters. All right. There it is. It's the one here, pineapple smash. Can you do it? All right. So while Jesse is telling us,
Hey,
about-
didn't know you'd be in the hot seat
All right,
twice
flip-
today when he came to work.
just flip it over and lay it face down. There you go. So as Jesse's going to tell us about what's in the paper, then Keith's going to make us just a random drink out of this, and we'll see if we can get him to make us two. This bar tab is going to be hellacious for me.
So the notation earlier about community that extends to local publications. This is one called True Brew Magazine. Have you seen True Brew Magazine?
No,
It's actually they also distribute through the Times Union.
you got the pineapple
This guy
wedges and everything.
literally have pineapple wedges. Look at that.
He's part ninja. I knew it.
That we should point out we did not contrive that. You
No.
literally just picked.
Yeah, we just picked a page.
That's awesome.
So you're going to make two of those. One for me, one for Jesse. We'll see how
Thank you,
Jesse-
brother.
We might even find Jesse a new cocktail.
So here is this True Brew magazine, and they will highlight not just breweries, also distilleries, meaderies, anything that's got kind of that alcohol adjacent component. And they do an amazing job bringing exposure to some of these local enterprises. So, for example, in the most recent holiday edition, which you guys can pick up among other places here at the tasting room, or I think go to truebrewmagazine.com. This is an article about the tasting room and our new drink menu.
Oh, nice.
And they give us all sorts of love. They kind of help highlight and celebrate what it is that we do here. You'll also notice, and Sean, you're going to get a kick out of this. There was a bonus component. This was 7 questions with Jesse Summer.
I could have just read that
And-
saved us all.
Yeah, and in fact, you'll even see me going sideways and once again talk about my deep disbelief in the truth of the moon landing, and
Him and the moon landing.
all of this stuff is a reflection of the fact that if you get embraced by the community, if you get embraced by the people for whom you're distilling, for whom you're creating a public space like
For whom
this,
the bell tolls.
for whom the bell tolls, you can actually create a business just off of the support and patronage of your neighbors. And that's the best part about American capitalism.
I love it. And now, okay, so right now, I'm going to turn the camera on to Keith just to make him nervous. Just to go ahead and do that to him.
You don't have to hear me anymore.
It'll be tough for him to hear you, but he's gonna mix our drink, and I'm gonna ask Jesse a question. So this was actually asked by Nate, and I'm gonna make it a 2-part question here. So Nate wanted to know what is your favorite bar food?
Oh my God, are you kidding me? The friggin' goldfish.
Go-
That's my thing. That is literally my thing.
Goldfish is your favorite
My favorite
bar food.
favorite food. Pepperidge technically the original style goldfish. I don't know where that is. We have this, knockoff cheddar cheese version, which is, what the pedestrians eat. Our original goldfish, which you can usually get here, that is my favorite food. Fight me if you were looking for a better answer. That is the best thing that the American culinary palate has ever created.
Now, I'm going to throw out. Now, it's funny you would say that. Now, see, that would I wouldn't call that a bar food. I'd call that a bar snack.
For me, it's a food. That's a meal for me.
Okay. God.
But we do have a pretty sizable menu here. I mean, we started doing doing flatbreads.
Nice.
In the morning, we're doing coffees and bagel. There's cheese spreads. There's charcuterie boards. Rosa Maria.
Listen to me. You need to listen to me right now.
She wanted to bring some plates into.
We might get some company.
Yeah, well, I think the microphones are scaring some people off. But look at this guy go!
Look at him, like
cute.
If you could find a man with a large enough one, he can handle it.
The benefit of being a small business is that we don't yet have an HR department, and so we invite all innuendo when people are engaged in activities.
I love double entendre.
There you go.
I'm a big double entendre.
Look at this guy, bro.
Is he gonna be able to?
I watched him whip that up out of nowhere. And look, he's already ready. What do you think? We don't have professionals here, Sean? What the fuck?
But now, see, if I was talking bar snacks like that, you know what I love? Olives.
Oh yeah, well,
like I used to get like a double shot glass of olives while I was drinking, and it was nothing better. But now, what about bar?
Well, hold on. What does Rosa Maria make? The olive paste that she makes. Those are really good. I like trust me. The problem is I can't speak to the menu because, believe it or not, I'm actually never here. This is Rosa Maria's domain. I'm in 32 different counties trying to push the brand. So this is actually a rare treat that we've made time for me to show you the tasting room. In fact, usually
I had to bully him.
Yeah, it took us a minute. Yeah. It's crazy to think that it was 3 years.
Neither one of us believed that.
Since last week.
But Jesse said to me, like, dude, it's been 3 years since we've sat and done this. I was like, no.
Which, by the way, means that we actually have something to which to toast.
We do.
Which is your podcast is now in its, is it fifth year?
June will be 5 years.
Good for you, dude.
Do you believe that shit? They let me still, the internet hasn't kicked me off. Like what's the canceled? I haven't been canceled yet. That's because I'm not that good at it. And cancel culture can't find me. They're like, really? Is it really worth it?
He's been canceled already.
Like, look, nobody's really watching this. But do you have?
Wow!
Look at this,
dude.
So hold on. Let me turn this here so I can get the camera back over this way as we do this whole room. So hold on. So this was the pineapple smash. This was just like super quick, out of the book.
Nice job.
I just said throw this together, and Keith, like a damn bartender
what
ninja,
a G,
just went and grabbed it and said, don't play games with me, young buck. I've got this. Like he was like this senior bartender. So let's check this out. So to another 5 years.
Another 5 years of the Above the Bar podcast.
And another 5 years for Jesse too.
Which will be the next aging cycle for our bourbon.
That's a summertime drink as well. So
oh wow.
Summertime. SOMMER like this guy.
He just drops roofies in his though. Look here, ladies, don't worry about it. It's just summertime drinks here. Like, dude, that's really good.
Isn't that good?
That's dangerous.
And
to sound creepy, you want to taste it?
I know what it tastes like.
Okay, fuck you then.
Whiskey smashes are a very popular summer drink too, which is just pretty much that with lemon juice.
That's really, but you know what? This was a good proof of concept, not previously contrived, everybody. Yeah. So he just came in here, random bourbon drink, pointed to it, and despite it not being on the menu of our 30 original drinks, you just popped that out.
And I asked it to be staged, and they said no.
Look at that. Look at that.
And now we're just going to change the name of this to an Above the Bar Smash.
It's an Above the Bar Smash. That's right.
Are they good?
Dude, I would like you said, summertime, I would so poolside this without any doubt about it.
I'm psyched. I'm psyched that you can taste the bourbon, man.
Yeah. And it's missing the mint. We don't have any mint.
It didn't have any mint, but like that, I don't even know if the mint would really have it would have changed the palate to it. But see, that's the thing, folks. Find yourself, you're in the capital region. Make sure you head on down here. I gotta fix this mic. Finally figured out why it was doing that to me. Come on down here to the New Scotland tasting room. It was 209
Lark Street, corner of State and Lark. And
if you're from the area, you know it's directly next to Season's Skate Shop.
That's right. And kitty corner to McGuire's, which used to be herald the heyday of Lark Street in many respects.
Is there McGuire's right over there?
Yeah, literally. Kitty corner player.
I didn't even realize it. I mean,
and it's a good, this is a good slow roll towards the end too, because we're about to have Sheriff of Lark Street office hours with the people who want to speak about, my latest diatribe on email or wherever.
Well, that's the whole thing.
Screeds end up.
I mean, one of the things you've proven, that was really part of this, was can you be a business leader and a community leader? And you've proven that, Jesse. You're not a guy who's out here, and I'm not tugging your root, but you're not out here like, hey, I own a spot in Lark Street, but I live in Glens Falls, which is 45 minutes away.
Word. I have a house on Lark Street.
You physically live in this community. This is your community. This is where you've decided to set up shop and live in it. Like, I've always been a fan of when people who have like city jobs, like, oh, you're a cop in New York City, you need to live in New York City. Like, I've always been a big fan of those.
The only thing I would take issue with or modify is the characterization of me as a leader. I have a different way of looking at it. I think in some way I'm a satirist or a rabble rouser who makes space for leaders to emerge. Sometimes, you realize that like the best leaders are not the ones who are shrieking and screaming. They're the ones that are willing to do the work. And I think what has happened is that leaders that I admire, I respect in the community, are getting drowned out. And so what I've done is kind of adopted some of the behavior or rhetoric of, the bombast. And in so doing, as you saw, it's not like I'm bringing completely original ideas to the People's Podium. I'm calling for people to show up to the People's Podium and share their thoughts. Some of them are not going to be particularly well informed. Others are going to be the people who provide the ideas that actually mean something. And that's why I love the idea of the tasting room, being in this community where conversation can happen. And, where I hate to say it, but like, you sometimes need that unapologetic, unabashed, loud voice to incite a reaction. Right. And, when you get everyone centralized drinking a little bit of whiskey, it's amazing to see what you can actually put together.
Well, that goes back to one of my favorite sayings: drunk man's words is a sober man's thoughts.
Well, that's fantastic.
I've always said
drunk man's words or a sober man's thoughts. Word.
I did that to a buddy of mine though, after he was out with some chick. He's like, dude, I was drunk and I told her I loved her. I was like, just to destroy his entire day. I went, drunk man's words, the sober man's thoughts. He's like, no, man, no. I was like, dude, you really feel it. He hated it. But well, look, so what is our next iteration? Anything coming up for New Scotland or for the tasting room? Anything that the public should be looking out for? Are we getting out of New York?
Yeah, we kind of have to. I mean, that is the next step. But the first thing I would say is we're getting into more of New York. For me, I always say that before I'm an American, I'm a New Yorker. Before I'm a New Yorker, I'm an Albanite. Before I'm an Albanite, I'm a New Scot. I really feel that, like, at the most granular level, organically, who you are is defined by the people with whom you share a little corner of the planet. So as we've started, we've taken over New Scotland. We're taking over Albany. Now I want to move beyond Albany County into the broader New York State. We're in 32 counties. I want to get into the city, and then, we'll take it from there. And I think we are about to launch a gin.
Interesting.
It's going to be great. And
now, who I got to ask this question then, because I like gin and I have my standard for my gin. I'm a big New Amsterdam fan.
Okay.
I don't know if you ever had New Amsterdam.
I have. Yeah.
I don't like Hendrix.
Yep.
I think Hendrix. I don't like dark gins. I think I do like Bombay Sapphire.
Ours is a classic London dry gin. Okay. In other words, we are purists. It's like, I only put wheat whiskey out, rye whiskey out. I'm not doing flavored shit. Same with the gin. It's like, what is our interpretation of
licking a pine tree?
Licking a pine tree.
That's like traditional gin, Tanqueray, licking a pine tree.
Licking a pine tree. I mean, the funny thing about gin is that it's really just juniper flavored vodka, and it's somehow established its own category because there's a lot of people that like that. and we're gonna be releasing that in about 6 weeks.
Nice.
It's gonna pay respects to the now deceased Legs Diamond. It's called Jack Diamond's Prohibition, and he was a gangster, Prohibition era gangster, who was murdered right on Dove Street. About
Oh wow.
3-minute walk from here, and those are the new things that we're doing. But the larger point is that the next iteration of the company is just letting the demand dictate where we're going. And we're very lucky in that the one thing that has never been an issue for us is reception. People love it.
Yes.
And we're very blessed for that.
Well, you're the face. Like whether you like it or not, you put it out there. You're in it. You're in it to win it. You're everywhere you need to be. I mean, and that's look, Jesse. I mean, let's call it what it is. They're all great. They all taste great. I could probably set the average person down in there and set 5 of the exact same bourbons in front of them and pour the same thing in every glass, and they wouldn't know. And they'd be like, "Well, this one tastes like this," and it's the same. But you make New Scotland. You have dictated it. You talked about partners. I had this one. I had that one. I'm a personal believer. I did it with the podcast, and we're going to close this up here in a second, but I think it's worth talking about. I did it with the podcast where I was like, "Oh, I'd love to have a second person," because you see, like for me, you see like a Howard Stern. He's got Robin. And
sure.
All that,
Yeah.
But if Robin left tomorrow, it's the Howard Stern show. How many people did he have before Artie Lang? You know, if they left, it's still the Howard Stern show. This might be called New Scotland Spirits, but it's still the Jesse Sommers show.
It's funny you say that though, and I'll just point this out. There's no question. If you said like, what did I really bring here? I pulled together a lot of good people who enabled me to expand my reach beyond what I could do alone. But what is interesting is that it actually depends on what corner of the enterprise you're coming into it with. So for example, if you watch social media, it's the Jesse show.
Right.
But there are people,
could be the Pixie.
It could be the Whiskey Pixie. She's now got an entire fan club independent of me. I mean,
or Peaches
or Peach, same deal. But Rosa Maria, for example, she's bringing people into the tasting room who've never seen me on social media. They're oblivious to it. And similarly, you got people that come in here because they like Keith. So what's actually what's actually been weird is watching how this thing that I did start in 2016 is beginning to tap into other communities by virtue of the people we're bringing into the operation.
That's how it's supposed to work.
And that is how it's supposed to work. It's how it is working. And it's very rewarding because the one thing that makes this sustainable is that someday it's got to exist without me. And that's what's really cool.
Well, that's
watching it.
A job in a business.
Yes, exactly.
Is can you walk away from it for 2 weeks
and
it still makes money? And there's different things, 2 weeks, 2 months, whatever. But can you walk away from it, still makes money? But again, folks, come on down to 209 Lark Street. Come to the tasting room. Come see Keith. Ladies, if you're nice, he might show you his abs.
That's by the way, that's felt figure. That's with no working out.
And if you talk to Jesse, he might give you a free subscription to his Feet Finder account. He'll make it happen for you. But join us. Make sure typically it's every Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We go live. This week we have Karen Lombardo. We're talking about writing. That whole AI piece, her and I have talked about this a ton. She's a copywriter.
Yeah.
By trade. Now she's written some kids' books and some other stuff, but she's a copywriter. And that's really affected her industry with writing copy for things. And we're going to talk a little bit about that, how that's affected her industry. But that's going to be upcoming here. So make sure you're joining us. If you're finding me through Jesse or Jesse through me, make sure you give this that like, share, follow. I know it always sounds cliche, like it's your kids' videos, but guess what?
It helps.
It really does.
It really does.
It's the algorithms. Look, I can tell when 10 of you log in and watch the live, all of a sudden it becomes 15 or 20 very quickly because the algorithm starts feeding it to other people. So make sure you're doing all those things. You can find Jesse on LinkedIn at Jesse Sommers, and it's Sommers, not Summers. He doesn't even know how to pronounce his own last name. Sommer. I just say Sommers because I know it's Sommers, but it's Jesse Sommers. But I harass him. But make sure you're checking out what he's got going on. What's your OnlyFans, Keith?
That's right.
Keith doesn't want to give out his OnlyFans. He's not trying to make any money on this. So we got Keith, but as we do in every episode, And Jesse knows how this is going to work. See how well he remembers it 3 times on the show. The guest always gets the final word. So what's our final word tonight there, Jesse?
Letting the suspense build. Whiskey.
Alrighty, folks, be sure to push your stool in. This has been a Second Front podcast presentation found on Apple, Spotify, and wherever podcasts can be found.